Elias had always dreamed of the stars. Ever since he was a child, he spent nights staring at the sky from the roof of his small home, tracing the constellations with his finger and imagining worlds that no human had ever seen. He would tell anyone who would listen that humanity's true destiny lay not on Earth, but among the countless stars scattered across the universe. Most people smiled politely and dismissed his words as childish dreams, but Elias never stopped believing. Now, years later, he was no longer a dreamer. He was an explorer, part of the first human mission to Lithera, a planet that had remained untouched and unseen by human eyes until recent scans detected faint signs of life. Unlike the dusty rocks and lifeless moons the expedition had encountered before, Lithera glowed in the instrument's readings, full of energy, full of mystery. It was a place that promised wonder, and Elias felt a thrill he had never experienced before in his life. The landing was smoother than anyone had expected. The ship's thrusters hummed gently as it descended through the lavender-colored atmosphere. Strange clouds floated like ribbons across the sky, glowing faintly under Lithera's twin suns. Elias pressed his hand against the viewport, staring at the landscape below. The forests shimmered with translucent leaves that seemed to hum softly. Rivers of liquid light twisted like veins across the land, reflecting the suns in dazzling patterns. Mountains rose in jagged formations, their peaks floating slightly above the ground as if gravity itself were unsure of them. Elias's heart beat faster. This was more beautiful than any simulation, more magnificent than any image captured by distant satellites. It was alive, not just with plants and minerals, but with a sense of conscious presence. The team, a small group of scientists and engineers, shared his awe, though most of them focused on instruments and measurements rather than wonder. As the explorers stepped out onto the soft, glowing surface, Elias felt a strange energy beneath his boots. The ground pulsed lightly with every step, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with an unseen rhythm. He closed his eyes for a moment and felt the planet as one would feel a heartbeat. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there, steady and calm, like Lithera was welcoming them. Their first encounter with the inhabitants of the planet came sooner than anyone expected. At first, Elias and the team thought the movement in the shimmering forest was a trick of the light. But then the forms emerged. Tall, luminous beings moved gracefully through the trees. Their bodies glowed softly, not in a harsh light, but as if they were made of energy itself. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. These were intelligent beings, but nothing like humans had ever imagined. They did not speak, yet he could feel a wave of curiosity and awareness emanating from them. One of the beings stepped closer, taller and brighter than the others. Its presence was commanding, yet it exuded calm. Elias felt an almost magnetic pull as their gaze, or whatever could be called their gaze, met his. For a moment, the world seemed to quiet around him. Time slowed, and he felt a flood of images and emotions he could not immediately understand. There was wisdom in this being, ancient and deep, as if it had seen the rise and fall of civilizations far beyond human comprehension. Then, softly, as if carried by thought rather than sound, a voice entered Elias's mind. "Human, do you remember what you did?" Elias stumbled backward, clutching his head. The words felt intimate, not threatening, but they carried weight. They were familiar, yet impossible to place. He wanted to speak, to respond, but no words came. The being's glow intensified slightly, and Elias realized it was waiting for something from him, an answer he did not know he had. He tried to recall anything, any memory that might explain the whisper. Nothing came at first, only a sense of responsibility he had never felt before. As if he were being held accountable for something far larger than himself. His mind raced, thinking of Earth, of humanity's history, of all the times humans had made mistakes and corrected them. Could it be that the aliens remembered humanity's actions in ways humans never recorded? The being stepped closer, and Elias felt a warmth that was almost like reassurance. The forest around them pulsed in time with his heartbeat, and he began to understand that communication here was not through words, but through shared awareness. Emotions, thoughts, and images blended together like colors on a canvas. Slowly, Images from Earth appeared in his mind. Satellites sent to distant planets, probes exploring alien worlds, and countless acts of human curiosity. Then, a vision of Lithera itself appeared, showing the early human probes that had accidentally disturbed its delicate balance, triggering subtle shifts in the planet's orbit. Elias's breath caught. These were events from centuries ago, long before humans could even imagine meeting the Lithari. Yet, here they were. Remembered. The luminous being's glow softened, and Elias understood. Humans had made mistakes, but they had also corrected them. Somehow, in ways unrecorded by history, human ingenuity and persistence had saved Lithera from disaster. The whisper in his mind was not a rebuke, it was a reminder, a question about the responsibility that came with knowledge and power. Elias looked at the being more closely. Its form was elegant, like a flowing sculpture of light, yet it was alive, aware, and profoundly intelligent. He realized that the Lithari did not just observe, they remembered, and they judged not by fear, but by understanding. Humanity had left a mark on this world, and the alien queen the title he began to think of for this being, though he did not yet know if it was truly a queen, was testing him, testing whether he could carry the legacy forward. The other members of his team moved cautiously, unsure how to interact with the Lithari. Some tried to speak aloud, but the aliens did not respond to sound. Elias waved them back gently. Communication here required patience and empathy, not commands or technology. He focused instead on opening his mind, letting feelings and intentions flow without words. Slowly, the alien queen, or at least the being Elias sensed as the leader, began to communicate more clearly. Flashes of memory intertwined with sensations of calm, curiosity, and gentle guidance. Elias realized he could sense the planet's history, not just the alien races, but the way Lithera itself had grown and adapted. Humanity's presence, though small and long ago, had been noticed and recorded in the consciousness of this species. The weight of responsibility settled on him, but it was not oppressive. It was inspiring. Humans could do good, could learn, could leave marks that mattered in ways beyond their understanding. Elias felt a connection forming, delicate but strong. He touched the air where the queen's form hovered, and a ripple of understanding passed between them. It was not physical, but emotional and mental. In that instant, he realized the true meaning of exploration. It was not just to discover, but to understand, to learn, and to care. Humanity had been lucky, and now it was his turn to honor that legacy. The team set up their base nearby, careful not to disturb the natural energy of the planet. Elias spent long hours observing the queen and the other Lithari, learning to interpret their subtle signals, their flowing motions, their changes in light. He discovered that the aliens were not only intelligent but deeply creative, expressing themselves in patterns of luminescence and gentle vibrations that resonated with the planet's natural rhythms. At night, when the twin suns dipped below the horizon and the forests glowed softly, Elias would sit outside, gazing at the alien city in wonder. The queen often appeared nearby, observing silently, and Elias felt that a dialogue was ongoing between them. Even without words, he began to understand that the whisper he had heard was not a question for one person, but for all humanity, a call to remember, to be mindful of the consequences of human actions, and to strive for greatness not through dominance, but through curiosity, creativity, and care. Days passed, and each interaction strengthened the connection between Elias and the Lithari. He learned to share emotions, to convey ideas through patterns of thought, and even to sense the subtle shifts in Lithera's energy. The planet itself seemed to respond to human presence in kind when approached with respect and understanding. For the first time in his life, Elias felt that humans truly belonged in the universe not as conquerors, but as partners in wonder. As the first part of his journey drew to a close, Elias stood once more before the queen. He no longer feared her presence or the whisper that had shaken him. Instead, he felt honor and humility, understanding that humanity had already played a part in this world's story. and that the future depended on the choices they would make next. The queen's light shimmered gently, almost as if acknowledging his understanding. Elias knew that this was only the beginning. Lythera held secrets yet to be uncovered, lessons yet to be learned, and a partnership yet to be forged. But for the first time, he felt a clear sense of purpose. Humanity had a legacy of curiosity, courage, and creativity. And now, it was up to them to continue that legacy with care, respect, and hope. And in the quiet of the glowing forests, under the twin suns of Lythera, Elias whispered back, not in words, but in thought, in intent, in shared understanding. I remember. We will not forget. Elias could not stop thinking about the moment the alien queen had whispered to him. Human, do you remember what you did? The words lingered in his mind like a soft echo, urging him to search deeper into his own memories and the planet's history. Every night, as Lythera's twin suns dipped below the horizon and the glowing forests shimmered in the twilight, he replayed the moment in his mind. There had to be something humans had done, something significant that the Lithari remembered. He spent the next morning exploring the forests, guided by the subtle pulse of the planet. It was as if Lythera itself was alive and willing to share its story. If only one knew how to listen. Elias noticed tiny changes in the plants beneath his feet. Leaves shifted gently as he walked past, not in fear, but as if acknowledging his presence. Streams of liquid light curved around him, creating patterns that seemed intentional, almost like a code waiting to be deciphered. He realized that the planet and the Lithari were deeply connected. To understand the aliens, he needed to understand Lythera itself. The alien queen appeared quietly beside him, her glowing form floating effortlessly above the soft ground. Elias felt the familiar rush of thoughts and emotions when their minds connected. This time, however, the connection was stronger, clearer. He could sense not just her curiosity, but her patience, her careful observation, and her desire to teach. Through the shared link, the queen began showing Elias images, not words, not spoken thoughts, but visions. He saw Earth, distant and small, a planet bustling with life, energy, and human creativity. He saw scientists building probes and satellites, engineers calculating trajectories, and humans sending technology into the stars without fully realizing the impact it might have. Among these images, one stood out. A human probe, sent long ago, approaching Lythera's orbit. At first, the vision was confusing. Elias saw how the probe had disturbed Lythera's delicate energy balance, causing subtle shifts in the planet's orbit. For centuries, Lythera had teetered on the edge of instability. Without human intervention, the planet might have faced catastrophic changes. But then the vision shifted. Earth scientists had noticed anomalies in the probe's readings and acted quickly, sending corrections and adjustments. Slowly, carefully, humanity had stabilized the orbit without even knowing the consequences of their actions. Elias's breath caught. Humans had made a mistake, but they had also fixed it. And the Lithari remembered. The queen's whisper was not a scolding, it was a reminder of humanity's capacity for both error and redemption. For the first time, Elias felt the full weight of human potential. They could make mistakes, yes, but they could also learn, adapt, and leave positive marks on worlds beyond their own. The queen then guided Elias to the heart of the alien city. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. Structures flowed like liquid, bending and twisting, glowing with colors that seemed to come from within, rather than from light sources. Bridges connected floating towers without support, and delicate patterns of energy arced between buildings. The city itself pulsed with life, as if every structure was a living organism. Elias realized that the Lithari did not just build with tools, they built with intention, emotion, and harmony with their surroundings. As Elias walked through the city, he sensed a rhythm in the air, a language of light and emotion that he could begin to understand. The queen's presence guided him, teaching him how to feel the subtle currents of energy and thought flowing through the streets. Every turn revealed new patterns of intelligence and creativity. The Lithari were not only highly intelligent, but deeply artistic. Their civilization had developed without conflict. yet it was rich with culture, ideas, and knowledge. Elias felt both awe and humility. Humanity had come so far, yet in comparison to the Lithari, they were still learning what it meant to live in harmony with a world beyond their own. Over the next few days, Elias worked closely with the Queen to explore the history of Lythira from her perspective. Through shared visions, he learned that humans had impacted the planet in small but meaningful ways long before this mission. Early probes and satellites, though primitive by alien standards, had left impressions on the Lithari's consciousness. Some had caused unintended harm, but others had demonstrated human creativity, problem-solving, and determination. These acts were remembered, celebrated even, for showing that humans had the potential to do good even in the face of ignorance or error. Elias realized that the Queen was testing him, testing humanity through him. The question, "Do you remember what you did?" was more than a challenge. It was an invitation to reflect, to understand, and to continue the work humans had started long ago. He felt pride, but also responsibility. If humans had shaped Lythira's history, even in small ways, they had a duty to act wisely now, to strengthen the bond between their species and the Lithari. He began experimenting with communication in new ways. The Lithari did not use words, but they could share complex ideas through emotions, images, and patterns of light. Elias practiced sending simple concepts at first: greetings, curiosity, and wonder. Slowly, he progressed to more complex ideas: maps of Earth, descriptions of human art, and explanations of technology that did not harm the planet. The Queen responded with guidance, showing him how to refine his thoughts, focus his emotions, and respect the rhythm of Lythira. One day, Elias noticed that the energy of the forests responded to his emotions. When he felt calm and focused, the light of the leaves pulsed gently. When he felt anxious or uncertain, the patterns became chaotic. He realized that this was not just a form of communication with the Lithari, it was a dialogue with Lythira itself. The planet and its inhabitants were connected, and understanding one meant respecting the other. Elias shared his discoveries with the human team. At first, some were skeptical. They relied on instruments, measurements, and data rather than intuition. But as they observed Elias interacting with the Lithari, they began to see the truth. Humans had a unique ability to combine logic, creativity, and empathy. They could adapt to new forms of communication, learn from other species, and even shape their environment in positive ways. The Lithari remembered this. Humanity's potential was not just in technology, it was in the combination of curiosity, problem-solving, and moral choice. The Queen guided Elias to a secluded grove, filled with glowing flowers that responded to thought rather than touch. Here, she shared a memory of the first human probes. Elias saw the tiny machines descending from the sky, carrying the hopes and mistakes of a young civilization. Some probes had malfunctioned, causing small disturbances. Others had transmitted data that unintentionally affected Lythira's energy fields. But over time, humans corrected their errors, sending adjustments that stabilized the planet. The Lithari had observed everything, not with anger, but with careful attention. They had learned to trust humanity's ability to correct mistakes and do good. Elias felt a surge of emotion. Humans had left their mark, not through conquest or violence, but through creativity, resilience, and responsibility. This was what the Queen wanted him to understand. Humans could shape worlds, influence lives, and leave legacies that mattered, but only if they chose to act wisely. He thought about Earth, about the mistakes humanity had made there, and about the future. If humans could learn from the past, they could become a force for good across the galaxy. Over the following days, Elias began teaching the Lithari about humans in a new way. He shared stories of art, music, science, and discovery. The Lithari responded with patterns of light and emotion, expressing appreciation and curiosity. Together, they began to exchange ideas, blending human imagination with alien intelligence. Elias felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He was not just exploring a new planet. He was building a bridge between species, a connection that could shape the future. The queen's whispers grew gentler over time. Elias no longer felt fear or confusion. He understood that the question, "Do you remember what you did?" was not an accusation, but a reminder of human potential. Humanity had already acted, already influenced this world, and now it was up to them to continue their legacy with care, creativity, and respect. Elias spent long hours reflecting on the lessons he had learned. Humans had the ability to make mistakes, but they also had the capacity to correct them. They could explore without harming, create without dominating, and inspire without destroying. This was the essence of HFY, the belief that humanity, when guided by curiosity, empathy, and intelligence, could rise above its flaws and achieve greatness that others admired. As the first weeks on Lythra passed, Elias felt a profound connection, not only to the Lithari, but to humanity itself. He realized that every choice, every act of curiosity, every effort to understand and improve, mattered in ways humans could not always see. The Queen had reminded him of this through her whisper, and now he carried the responsibility forward. He knew that the journey was just beginning. Lythra held many secrets yet to be discovered, lessons yet to be learned, and wonders that could reshape human understanding of the universe. But Elias felt confident. Humans had left a mark on this world before, and they could continue to do so not through force or conquest, but through creativity, responsibility, and the courage to learn from the past. And as the sun rose over the glowing forests, casting twin rays across the shimmering city, Elias smiled. He had begun to understand the truth the alien queen had been showing him. Humanity's greatest power was not in technology or strength, but in the ability to remember, reflect, and act with wisdom. Lythra's story and humanity's story were intertwined, and together, they could shape a future full of hope, wonder, and possibility. Elias woke early that morning, feeling the soft pulse of Lythra beneath his feet. The twin suns were just beginning to rise, casting gentle beams over the glowing forests. Today felt different. He sensed a new energy in the air, a readiness in the Lithari that he had not felt before. The alien queen had appeared beside him, her light, calm, and steady, as if encouraging him to take the next step in their growing friendship. For weeks, Elias had been learning the subtle language of the Lithari. It was unlike anything he had experienced on Earth. Words were not enough. Thoughts, feelings, and intentions flowed between them like currents in a river. He had discovered that the Lithari could sense honesty, curiosity, and empathy. If a human approached with doubt or fear, the aliens would pause, waiting for the person to align their mind and spirit with the planet itself. Elias had practiced this constantly, and now he felt ready to explore more deeply, to learn not only about the Lithari, but about the planet, and the role humans could play in this world. He walked through the forest, noticing the plants responding to his presence. The leaves shimmered gently, and the streams of liquid light curved to form intricate patterns around him. Each step felt like a conversation, a dialogue with Lythra itself. The queen moved beside him, guiding him silently, showing him which areas were safe and which places held deeper energy currents. Eventually, they reached a grove filled with glowing flowers, each one radiating a soft, colorful light. The queen paused here, and Elias sensed her intention. She wanted him to participate, to add something from humanity to this living tapestry. He knelt down and extended his hands. Focusing on the memories of Earth, he carried the laughter of children, the sound of rain on rooftops, the beauty of human music. Slowly, he projected these feelings toward the flowers. To his amazement, the flowers began to respond. They swayed, their colors shifting in harmony with the emotions he shared. The queen's glow intensified slightly, and Elias felt a sense of pride. This was more than interaction. It was collaboration. Humans could not only learn from the Lithari, but they could contribute to the beauty and energy of Lythra itself. Over the next few days, Elias began experimenting with more complex ideas. He showed the Lithari patterns from human art, the shapes of music visualized in colors, and simple mathematical concepts represented through light. The Lithari responded in ways that were both unexpected and wonderful. They created flowing bridges of light, danced with patterns in the air, and formed shapes that told stories of their own culture. Elias realized that this was a new kind of exchange, one that went beyond language and technology. It was a meeting of minds and hearts, a blending of human creativity and alien intelligence. The other members of the human team observed these interactions with curiosity. At first, some were skeptical, still focused on instruments and data, but as they watched the humans and Lythari communicate through shared emotions and visions, they began to understand. Humans had something unique: the ability to imagine, to feel deeply, and to connect with other beings in ways that went beyond logic or measurement. The Lythari remembered this quality. It was what made humans special, what allowed them to leave lasting marks not only on their own world, but on Lythara as well. Elias spent long hours with the Queen, exploring the histories she shared. Through visions, he saw Lythara's past, the growth of forests, the development of cities that floated effortlessly above the ground, and the evolution of the Lythari as a species deeply connected to their environment. He also saw the moments when humanity had interacted with the planet, how early probes had shifted its energy, and how careful adjustments had corrected those disturbances. The Lythari had observed everything with patience and intelligence, remembering not just the mistakes, but the efforts to make things right. One afternoon, as Elias and the Queen wandered along a river of liquid light, he began to understand the deeper purpose of these lessons. The Queen did not only want him to remember what humanity had done, she wanted him to teach, guide, and inspire. Humans could play a role in shaping Lythara's future, not as conquerors, but as partners. Elias felt a surge of responsibility. Every thought, every action, every choice mattered. The planet and its inhabitants were alive in ways humans had rarely encountered, and respect and care were essential. Elias began to share these ideas with his team more actively. They created small experiments to understand how human creativity could enhance Lythara's energy without harming it. They used art, music, and patterns of movement to interact with the glowing forests and rivers, observing how the Lythari responded. The results were remarkable. The aliens seemed to resonate with human intentions, amplifying positive energy and creating beautiful visual displays. Humans were learning from the Lythari, but they were also contributing in ways the aliens appreciated. Through these experiences, Elias realized something important. HFY was not just about proving human strength or intelligence, it was about showing humanity's capacity for creativity, empathy, and collaboration. The Lythari had observed humans' potential for both harm and good, and now they were witnessing what humans could achieve when they chose to act with thoughtfulness and care. Elias felt a deep sense of pride. Humans could be a force for positive change, not just on Earth, but across the galaxy. One evening, as the sun set and the glowing forests bathed in twilight, Elias had a new vision from the Queen. He saw Lythara hundreds of years into the future, a world where humans and Lythari worked together to explore, learn, and create. Cities floated in harmony with the planet's energy, forests thrived, and the rivers of light pulsed in vibrant, ever-changing patterns. Humans were not rulers, but collaborators. They were respected not for their technology, but for their ability to imagine, create, and care. Elias felt a profound sense of purpose. He knew that the journey ahead would not always be easy. Learning to communicate with the Lythari, understanding Lythara's energy, and guiding humanity's actions required patience, empathy, and courage. But he also knew that humans had already proven themselves capable. They had left a mark on Lythara long ago, and now they had the chance to continue that legacy with thoughtfulness and respect. The alien queen's presence remained constant, a gentle guide through the complexities of this new world. Elias learned to interpret subtle changes in her glow, movements, and patterns of energy. He understood that she was not only teaching him, but testing him, encouraging him to embody the best qualities of humanity: curiosity, creativity, and compassion. As days turned into weeks, Elias and his team began forming deeper bonds with the Lythari. They exchanged ideas, shared stories, and learned from each other's cultures. Humans taught the Lithari about Earth's diversity, music, and art, while the aliens shared their knowledge of Lithara's energy, history, and philosophy. Every interaction strengthened the connection between species, demonstrating that trust, respect, and creativity could build bridges that technology alone could never achieve. Elias reflected on the Queen's original question. Do you remember what you did? He understood now that it was not about blame or fear. It was about recognition and responsibility. Humans had shaped Lithara's history in small but meaningful ways, and the future depended on continuing that legacy with care and integrity. He realized that this was the essence of HFY. Humanity's ability to learn from the past, act wisely in the present, and inspire positive change for the future. One morning, Elias led his team to a new area of the forest, where the trees formed natural arches and the rivers split into countless glowing channels. Here, they began experimenting with collaborative projects, blending human creativity with Lithari energy. They created intricate designs in the air using light and motion, watched the plants respond, and observed how the Lithari added their own patterns and ideas. Each session felt like a celebration of partnership, imagination, and mutual respect. Through these activities, Elias noticed something remarkable. The Lithari responded most strongly when humans approached with honesty and curiosity, rather than attempts to control or manipulate. Their energy intensified, their light shone brighter, and their movements became more intricate. Elias realized that human potential was not measured by tools or power, but by the sincerity of intentions and the willingness to understand and collaborate. By the end of the third week, Elias felt a profound connection to Lithara, the Lithari, and humanity itself. Humans had left their mark on this world long ago, and now they had the chance to continue that story with pride and care. He understood that the true HFY moment was not about victory or conquest, but about creativity, responsibility, and the courage to act wisely in a universe full of wonder. As the suns rose once more over the glowing forests, Elias stood beside the alien queen. The air pulsed with gentle energy, and the forest shimmered in harmonious patterns. He felt a sense of fulfillment and anticipation. The journey was far from over, but humanity's role on Lithara was clear: to learn, to create, and to honor the past while shaping a brighter future. Elias smiled, knowing that the connection he had forged with the Lithari and their planet was only the beginning. Humans had already done remarkable things in Lithara's history, and now they had the chance to continue, to grow, and to prove that humanity could be a force for good in the galaxy, remembered not for mistakes, but for wisdom, creativity, and compassion. Elias felt the first rays of Lithara's twin suns on his face as he stepped out of the base. The forests around him glowed softly, their energy resonating with his own heartbeat. After weeks of exploration, learning, and collaboration with the Lithari, he felt a deep connection to the planet and its inhabitants. Humanity's role here was no longer a question. It was a responsibility, a partnership built on curiosity, creativity, and care. The alien queen appeared beside him, her glow calm and steady, as if acknowledging the work humans had done so far. Elias had learned to interpret the subtle changes in her energy. A flicker meant curiosity, a steady shine meant approval, and a slow wave of light meant deep understanding. Today, her light radiated a gentle warmth, as if encouraging him to take the next step. Elias turned to his team. They had grown in confidence and skill, learning to communicate with the Lithari, understand Lithara's energy, and contribute creatively to the planet. They had designed collaborative projects with the aliens, combining human imagination with Lithari patterns of light and energy. Bridges of glowing light arched over streams, flowers responded to human music, and forests pulsed gently in tune with shared emotions. The results were more than beautiful. They were a testament to what humanity could achieve when guided by respect, empathy, and creativity. The Queen guided Elias to a new area, a wide valley where rivers of liquid light converged into a shimmering pool. Here, she showed him the potential for a lasting legacy. The valley was like a blank canvas, full of energy and possibility. Elias understood immediately. This was a place where humans and Lithari could create together, a symbol of trust and collaboration that would endure for generations. Elias began planning with his team. They would build structures that harmonized with Lithera's natural energy. Spaces where humans and Lithari could work, learn, and share ideas. Unlike cities on Earth, these structures would not dominate the land. They would flow with it, shaped by energy and intention, rather than concrete and steel. The Queen and the Lithari provided guidance, ensuring that every design respected the planet's delicate balance. As the weeks passed, the valley transformed. Human ideas and creativity merged seamlessly with Lithari energy. Bridges and towers of light appeared, glowing in patterns that shifted and evolved over time. Gardens of luminous plants grew, responding to movement and thought, while pools of liquid light reflected the ever-changing sky. The humans and Lithari worked side by side, exchanging knowledge, culture, and ideas. Music, art, and mathematics blended into living patterns, creating a world that was both functional and beautiful. Elias marveled at the progress. Humans had not only learned from the Lithari, they had contributed something unique. Their creativity, empathy, and curiosity had shaped the valley into a symbol of unity and possibility. The Queen's light shone brighter than ever, radiating a sense of deep approval. Elias understood that this was what she had been guiding him toward all along. A place where humanity's best qualities could be expressed, nurtured, and remembered. Beyond the valley, Elias and his team continued to explore Lithera, learning more about its energy, history, and culture. They discovered ancient Lithari archives, glowing structures that recorded the planet's past in patterns of light and emotion. Through these archives, humans learned how the Lithari had thrived for millennia, balancing creativity, knowledge, and respect for their environment. They saw how human actions centuries ago had been remembered, not as mistakes, but as acts that demonstrated potential, curiosity, and the willingness to correct errors. Elias felt a sense of pride and humility. Humanity had left its mark on Lithera long before they arrived, and now they had the chance to continue that legacy. The true HFY moment was not about dominance or conquest, it was about creativity, responsibility, and partnership. Humans had the ability to inspire, to build, and to collaborate across worlds, leaving lasting marks through positive action and thoughtful choices. One afternoon, the Queen guided Elias to the highest point in the valley. From there, he could see the glowing forests stretching into the distance, rivers of light winding through the land, and the structures humans and Lithari had built together. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but also a profound responsibility. This world was alive, and every action mattered. Humanity's legacy would be measured not by technology or power, but by how they respected, nurtured, and contributed to life beyond their own planet. Elias reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the first time the Queen had whispered, "Human, do you remember what you did?" At the time, he had been confused and fearful. Now, he understood. The question was not about punishment or blame, it was about awareness, responsibility, and potential. Humans had the capacity to influence worlds, to leave lasting impressions, and to shape the future in meaningful ways. The Queen had reminded him of this, guiding him to realize that true greatness came from creativity, empathy, and the courage to act wisely. Over time, humans and Lithari began formalizing their collaboration. They created shared learning centers where knowledge could be exchanged, areas where art and science merged, and open spaces where both species could observe and interact with Lithera's natural energy. The planet responded beautifully, its forests pulsing gently, rivers reflecting light patterns, and the air shimmering with life. Elias realized that humanity's role was not to conquer, but to enhance, protect, and celebrate the beauty of Lithera. The human team grew closer to the Lithari as well. They learned to understand subtle shifts in energy, interpret patterns of light, and communicate with emotion, rather than words. Trust deepened, and a sense of mutual respect flourished. Humans were remembered not for their mistakes, but for their willingness to learn, create, and act with care. Elias felt proud to represent humanity in this new chapter, knowing that they had the potential to leave positive legacies wherever they went. One evening, as the sun set and the valley glowed softly in twilight, Elias stood with the queen. The forests shimmered, and the rivers of light reflected both species' contributions. He realized that humans had achieved something remarkable. They had not only explored a new world, they had connected, learned, and built alongside a species far older and wiser. Their creativity, empathy, and respect had created a partnership that would endure, a legacy that would be remembered not in history books, but in the living energy of Lythera itself. Elias thought of Earth and the countless challenges humanity faced there. He realized that the lessons learned on Lythera could be shared, inspiring humans to approach their own planet with the same care, creativity, and responsibility. HFY was not about proving strength or intelligence, it was about showing the best of humanity. The ability to learn from mistakes, create beauty, and act with wisdom. As the night deepened, Elias looked at the stars above, twinkling faintly through Lythera's atmosphere. He felt hope and determination. Humanity had left its mark on this world, and now it had the chance to continue building, creating, and inspiring. The queen's glow beside him was warm and steady, a reminder of the trust humans had earned and the partnership that would shape the future. Elias smiled. He understood the full meaning of the queen's whisper now. Humans had acted in the past. They had corrected mistakes, and now they had the opportunity to leave a lasting, positive impact. Their role on Lythera was not one of dominance, but of collaboration, creativity, and care. And in doing so, humanity would prove that it could rise above its flaws and shine brightly, not just on Earth, but across the stars. In the days that followed, humans and Lythari continued to explore, create, and learn together. They built new structures that floated gently above the ground, gardens that responded to thought and emotion, and areas where knowledge, art, and ideas from both species could be shared freely. Each project strengthened the bond between humans and Lythari, and each moment reminded Elias that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or power, but curiosity, empathy, and the courage to act wisely. By the end of the first year on Lythera, the valley had become a living testament to human and Lythari collaboration. Visitors from both species could walk through glowing forests, explore bridges of light, and witness the harmony of art and science working together. Elias often thought of the first time he had heard the queen's whisper, and he realized that it had been more than a question. It had been a call to remember, to act, and to build a future worthy of humanity's potential. As he stood in the center of the valley one morning, feeling the pulse of Lythera beneath him, Elias felt a sense of peace and purpose. Humans had proven that they could learn, adapt, and inspire. They had left a mark on this world through creativity, respect, and collaboration. And as long as they remembered their responsibility, they could continue to shape the future with wisdom and care. The queen's glow shimmered beside him, and for the first time, Elias felt that they understood each other completely. The journey had begun with a whisper, a question that had seemed mysterious and heavy. Now, it was a promise. Humanity could leave a legacy, not of mistakes or destruction, but of hope, creativity, and partnership. Elias looked at the glowing valley, the rivers of light, and the forest stretching to the horizon. He knew that humanity's story on Lythera was only beginning, but he also knew that it was a story that would endure, remembered not for conquest, but for the best of what humans could be. And with that knowledge, he felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had ever known. Humanity had arrived among the stars, not to dominate, but to learn, create, and shine. And in that shining valley on Lythera, humans and Lythari stood together, ready to face the future, ready to explore, and ready to prove that the best of humanity was worth remembering.